is our video about content-based. I am Laura.
I'm Mafre.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Alejandra.
I'm Vanessa. And let's start. So our guest is Professor Felipe Espinosa. He is graduated from the University of Los Bosque. So can you introduce yourself for our classmates?
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm Felipe Espinosa. I have a BA in English and Bilingualism from El Bosque University. And I also have a master's degree in English didactics from Externado Colombia University. What else can I tell you? I've been working as a teacher for 10 years. I started as a school teacher. Nowadays I'm working in a university. And I love actually teaching. It's just part of my life. And I also do research. That's what I do.
Okay, so the first question is, what is your concept of CBI?
Great. Well, before starting this interview, I was just trying to remember what was CBI, because as far as I know, it's content-based instruction.
Yes.
And there are different authors who have discussed about the principles of this and how it has become such a method or an approach as well. But it depends on the author at the end. I do conceive that CBI is a little bit old, I have to be honest, in a way that it was actually like, 15 years ago when it started the process of teaching different subjects in English. And here in Colombia, with part of the bilingualism project that was brought as Colombia Bilingüe 2010, they decided to start giving other subjects in English. And in the universities, they started to pick up this different content. And I do believe that CBI is a little bit old. Nowadays, we're talking about more CLIL, content language integrated learning. And even our more recent one, which I just certified myself on, that is EMI, which is English as a medium of instruction, which is just basically give the content and not actually worrying about the language itself.
So do you think that the CBI is a method that you can implement in your classes?
Sure. Nowadays I don't teach a lot of classes because I'm the coordinator of the bachelor's, but whenever I actually teach class, I usually use that specific method that I was mentioning before, which is EMI. CBI is nice because it focuses a little bit on the language, but if we do like a comparison chart in between both, EMI is actually most focused on the content rather than the language. So I think that CBI is just mostly focused on the language itself.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
As you were saying, do you implement CBI in your classes?
Yes,
right?
I do.
So, what is the focus on your classes? Language or content driven?
Great. Well, as I was saying before, I do actually implement it in the classes, but it depends on the semester as well. If you have lower semester students, like first or second semester, you need to focus a lot on the language because you cannot allow different mistakes taking in place into the classes. But if I'm teaching 8 semester students, 7 semester students, of course there's a need for them to actually start creating these environments where they understand the content and focusing a lot on the content rather than the language. So I'm not going to stop and correct them in their language issues, but I rather prefer just to create a line where I can just correct them in the content itself.
Okay, so let's continue. What is the main role of CBI in your classes?
Great. I do consider that CBI has a strong feeling on language, but I just prefer to give it from the content itself. Of course, we as learners and as you guys are students, and I was also a student of that program, I understand that whenever you're doing all of these homeworks and all of these activities, you get a little bit of stress in regards to the language. But I just kind of free them, in that way. So I just tell them, okay, don't feel stressed because of your language. I'm not going to focus on the language itself. Probably I'm going to correct some little mistakes, pronunciation things, accuracy, fluency that I just have to correct as a teacher. But I just definitely prefer to focus on the content. If my student, for example, I'm teaching writing for teachers, which is academic writing, I have to correct the language, of course, and the content as well. If the student does know how to write an essay, that's just part of it. But if I'm teaching a class such as current events, which is talking about these nowadays issues that affect education, I'm not going to focus on the language. I just prefer the student to reflect upon the argumentation of what is happening in the world and how those different topics are actually affecting education. So I just think that content is better for me.
Hi, Felipe.
Hi.
Guess what?
What?
Another question.
Great. I'm happy for it.
Okay, how do you combine the CBI in your class?
Great. Well, as I was just telling you guys, there is the CBI is just the method or approach that you use for your classes, and I do conceive that whenever a teacher is good, you need to combine it with didactics. I have a master's in didactics, and I do conceive that the importance of actually conduct your students through activities that they actually enjoy. Let me just think about something. If I'm teaching natural sciences and I want to teach the cell, I'm just going to create something completely magical for my students if they are kids, and I'm just going to create something for them they can actually feel comfortable in, that they can actually enjoy, right? For example, creating a cell with eatable materials. So we're just going to get the different ingredients, we do it here in class, we understand the parts of the cell, and then we're just going to eat it. So I think that that's just part of it. For my adult students, I do a lot of debates. I create a lot of different debates because you develop critical thinking through it. I also use a lot of different warm-up activities. I don't do isolated warm-ups because I don't think it just focuses on the content of the class. So I just do in-topic warm-ups. And I come with these crazy activities where they have to play, they have to go to a board and run and go back, and they create sentences and say, I do many different activities so my students can feel engaged with the class, which is the purpose at the end of learning.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
What technique and instruments do you use to assessments?
Great. Whenever we talk about assessment, it's just something hard for us teachers because we left our hearts go and follow the path. So the greatest student in the classroom, we always give him a 5, and the one who's not that good, we just go straight and evaluate in a different way. I'm a teacher of a bachelor's in English and bilingualism as well, and I do conceive that whenever I teach my students about assessment, they have to be really strict with it and have a rubric, for example. So that's just one of the first instruments that I use. The technique, I think that it has to be observation. How is it that as a teacher I start observing my students and see what is the transversal line that grows in regards to the improvement? So I do consider a rubric is an easy way that you can assess your students, be fair, because that's just something that sometimes teachers are not. Teachers tend just to grade over if I like this guy or if I like this girl, let's just give it a 5, and if I hate the other, let's just, so it's completely unprofessional in a way. Giving an assessment such as a rubric from the beginning is going to give them the idea of what is it that you're going to accomplish at the end, right? So I do consider that those are the 2 main techniques and observation. I think that is part of the process. You as a teacher need to always have your teacher journal, right? Start writing all of the ideas that you develop in your classes because that's probably going to help you in research. So once you conduct different investigation process, you can just go back in time and say, okay, what was the way I assessed my students when I was in first semester, second semester? And then what is the process now of assessment as a grown-up professional?
Okay, thank
Great.
you. It's all for today, and
Great.
thank you for coming, and so see you at the next episode.
Great, thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.